Good evening. Thank you so much for being here today. We're here for our special call meeting tonight. It is approximately 7 o'clock. I'm going to ask Commissioner Mason, if you would, lead us in our invocation tonight. I'm going to ask Commissioner Cowan, if you would, to lead us in our pledge tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let us all bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us back to this time and place one more time. We thank you for all that you've done for this county and all that you're about to do. We come on tonight blessing you and honoring you and giving you the praise for just allowing this particular board to lead and guide this community. We ask that as we move forward to do the business of Newton County, that you would be with us, go with us, give us the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding of how to come together, unify ourselves, respect each other, love each other, so that we may be all that you have called us to be and do all that you have called us to do to help take and elevate this county and this community to the next level. We'll be forever grateful, thankful. We give you all the kingdom, honor, and the glory because you said it, we believe it, and that settles it. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Again, thank you so much for being here tonight. Our special call meeting tonight, we will be discussing the American Rescue Plan. Want to open it up now for discussion. I don't know if any commissioner that wants to go first. If you do, Commissioner Sanders, you want to go first? Go ahead.
I had the opportunity to speak to about 4 or 5 counties, and right in front of you, commissioners, I had put on your desk Gwinnett County, Douglas County, part of Rockdale. I was able to speak to some of the commissioners in Rockdale and part of some programs from Fulton. And so they actually broke down how they actually utilize their ARPA funds, whether it be for the citizens, also for COVID relief, also giving money to the employees as well, our first responders and all the employees in the county. So they have a list of activities, and I also created a spreadsheet for us that when we want to write on what we come up with, we have actually a plan, and our wonderful county attorney here also edited as well to make sure that we was in compliance. So I just would like for us to just look at the actual sheets. The one that I think we probably can look at the most is Douglas County, because that's the one that we emulate in regards to our population. That's the green sheet that looks like this. And it kind of breaks down some of the things that they've done. And we know Gwinnett is a little bit larger than we are, so they can do a lot more because they've received a whole lot more funds, and Fulton as well. But there's programs that actually Fulton County put in place for health and wellness. And as you can see, that huge packet, they even had a whole plan on how businesses submit, nonprofits and so forth, how they submit for the actual funds. They had a whole entire plan. So that's why I said it's always good to work smart than hard, because a lot of these counties have already created the master plan for us and have done the program and the work. So all we have to do is just make it Newton County for some of the things that we need to do based on what we need here in Newton County.
Commissioner Mason?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe our county manager actually did a presentation back on August the 17th in regards to how this board can utilize the actual funds that we currently have. And so it was my assumption that based off of that particular presentation, we have ways that we can utilize the funds. It's just up to this particular board to decide when we're going to start giving those funds out once we figure out how we want to utilize them. There were 5 primary ways to use the funds. There was a premium pay for essential workers. There was water, sewer, broadband infrastructure. There was also support public health response, address negative economic impacts, and to replace public sector revenue loss. There was also a list of potential uses for those funds. I think from what I've heard thus far, this board has really wanted to focus on rent, mortgage, or utility assistance. Those were some of the big ones that we wanted to focus on and utilize those for, but there were several others to address disparity in public health outcomes, support public health workers, food assistance, counseling and legal aid to prevent eviction or homelessness. There's internet access, digital literacy assistance, job training related to a worker's occupation or level of training impacted by COVID, et cetera, et cetera. So there are a lot of usage, even the assistance to small businesses, nonprofits, premium pay for essential workers, aid to impact industries, rehiring of employees. So there are a list of ways to utilize these funds. When you go to the U.S. Treasury website, you can kind of see that these are in alignment with what we can utilize. I think what this board should focus on this point is narrowing down what specific uses we want to utilize. And then once we do that, what process we are going to put in place to begin to distribute those funds as quickly as we possibly can to help aid and assist our community. And so I think there's been a lot of research, there's been a lot of things done. I think now we're at a point where we need to really make a decision on what we're going to use them for and when is the soonest that we can begin to take those funds and begin to implement them and give them back into our community. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Commissioner Sanders.
Just to expound on what Commissioner Mason was stating, actually, Lord was reading off the Executive Order 13985, so that's where the information actually came from, and where the other counties utilized it and broke it down in details based on the public health and so forth. So we actually have not done any research, so that's why before you, I brought you the research, so we can have at least a guide to help us get to where we need to be if other counties have already been successful, especially with Douglas County being the county that our county manager always states that he looks at to analyze based on Newton County. They've done it. So we could look at some of the things that they need versus the town halls we had, what our citizens are looking for as well, which will give us a guideline of how to actually come across what we need to do here in the county. So we have not done any research. So that's why I brought the research.
Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just let me say this. You know, I was not looking for a debate. I was looking for some help for people in the community who need help. You know, the ones who mortgage are behind. That these funds I was thinking was specifically sent here to help too as well. The people who are mortgage behind, rent, utility bills, and even to help nonprofits, you know, who have held up individuals as far as rent, to help them too. And the shelter, you know, because I know for a fact that people are living behind Food Depot in the woods. They just built this great big old apartment complex out there for seniors, and yet the woods are full of homeless people. So, you know, I'm hoping we just kind of get down to business, and I'm hoping the Lord can, if He would suggest or tell us how can we distribute those funds. Commissioner Edwards had at the last meeting he had a great idea. He said, well, let's go through Salvation Army. And somebody, I think I had mentioned United Way. So could we use those particular organizations to distribute these funds to help people for the fill out application? Not just that one will give it to them, but fill out application so that they can get it in the form of a grant, a non-payback grant. So I guess that's what I was hoping this meeting was going to be about us talking about distributing it, not talking about, yeah. So it's So where we at, County Manager, Lord, if I might ask? Lord,
Oh, Mr. Kerr?
I was at where we at as far as distributing. I thought the last thing that was said, and correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Edwards, you said let's look at the Salvation Army and the United Way as far as distributing funds. Could we do that? And we-
Yeah, he's proposing, yes, he asking you the question.
I've not contacted either body at this point because there was to be this discussion tonight, and but I've not contacted either body. But I know that when we had begun to work with them during the initial distribution of CARES funds, at that point the Salvation Army was looking at needing 30 to 45 days in order to gear up, in order to help distribute. At that point, we were looking at about $1.5 million, I think, is what we had initially looked at. But they needed to hire caseworkers, and they needed to set up their own individual infrastructure there to make sure that they had enough people there to handle the caseload. And also that they had the data and the connections available to make sure that we didn't have, that there weren't going to be people who were going to be double dipping, so to speak, here and at the city and elsewhere. So if it was going to be about a 30 to 45 day process, if I remember right, once we had engaged them in order for them to get all cranked up and be able to handle that process. At that point, I believe that they were looking at between 800, they estimated between 800 and 1,000 clients, if you will, I think is what they had estimated at that time that they could handle. Now, my understanding is the local director has changed. So I don't know whether this is the same mission is there that there was, but again, I did not contact them since this meeting was going to take place, and we did put out, as I stated at the last meeting, I would do want to advise you all that we have had the RFP out now for several weeks. And I believe it will close in 2 more weeks. We've had 110 responses. Not all of those have submitted something, but 110 requests for the bid packages is phenomenal on any project. So we do anticipate that we'll get some pretty substantial submittals for the project. So, you know, assuming or depending, of course, I guess, on what happens here tonight, but we did get quite a response, and quite a larger response than actually was anticipated. So in the event, in any event, I did want to pass that on to everybody. We also took an opportunity, I know there's been a lot of discussion about the situation with evictions and all, and we did take an opportunity to talk with Judge Bell and to get some information from the magistrate's court about the number of evictions and so forth. From January of 2021 through October of 2021, there were a total of a little over 1,300 cases, if you will, filed by landlords for dispossessory. Of those, 300 were actually, I guess, adjudicated. I think that's the correct word. But only 100 of those, or somewhere around 100, were found to have related to COVID-19. The other ones, I'm making an assumption here, were probably ones that were left over from earlier situations where they were just now being heard because there had been the moratorium. But only about 100 of those actually, the individuals filed a CDC affidavit protecting them from those evictions. So I know there's been an awful lot of discussion about, large numbers of folks that were being displaced, but the courts are not bearing that out. So I want to keep that in mind as well. And this is information that came directly from the court, our own county courts over there. So, and that the DCA as well has said that there's not been, the numbers of folks that they had anticipated that to apply for the rental assistance and for the utilities assistance as well. But I did want to point that out that while yes, there are some people who've been obviously negatively impacted and all, it's not while the numbers of people, 100 people is still a lot of people, but at least it's not the thousands that we had been, and very, very large numbers that we had been hearing. So.
Wait,
Senator.
no. Well, Commissioner Edwards, are you
Okay.
done, Commissioner Henderson?
No, my hand was up before you.
No.
Okay.
No. Are you done, Commissioner Henderson? Commissioner Edwards. You got Commissioner Edwards, then Commissioner Sanders, and then Commissioner Calvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I know I want to go a level higher at the 30,000-foot view, real quick. A couple of us, no more than two, had a conversation on the elevator after the last meeting a couple of weeks ago, and it was it was just an informal conversation going down the elevator, and I had my idea is that we need a starting point, right? So we know Lloyd has got a process started. So why wouldn't we, and this is just a suggestion to throw darts at, right? So why wouldn't we say, ask each commissioner, okay, what is your priority? What is your priority with the ARP funds? And then designate a dollar amount. And I'll throw it out there. And I'm not using these dollars amount flippantly. Okay, $10 is a lot of money to me. So, but if you said half, $500,000 or $250,000 per commissioner for now, and call it emergency access funds of the ARP funds, and you said okay, Commissioner Henderson, you now have $250,000 designated as you will, as long as it falls within the guidelines of the federal government's guidelines, subject to our legal review and a resolution vote by this board. And I want to call it an emergency access, or even a trial access of funds to see how well that flow goes and how that process may work out. And then we go from there. I think the larger bucket of that money is it may be wise for us to follow through with a process similar to what Lloyd has described, but up front, we take a certain dollar amount per commissioner, and like I'll repeat it, and we designate per commissioner a certain dollar amount subject to a legal review, subject to a resolution vote by this board, and I will add that the 5 go together on one resolution. So if one fails, they all fail. That would just be my suggestion for an upfront amount for each district, and we could use it as a trial and also as emergency type funds. That was the conversation. That was the suggestion I made, and some of the conversation we had. I didn't hear any negative feedback during that conversation. Maybe there is, but I'm looking for a place to start. And I know what I have designated. If you gave me $500,000 or $500,000 today, I know what I want that designated for in my particular district right now. I don't think it'd be a surprise to anybody around this horseshoe what I want it designated for, but you know, I would have to have that review, legal review, bounce it off the federal regulations and the legal review, and then off you guys as well. So I have, and my need is urgent. I feel like just like everybody else probably feels theirs is too, right? So this is selfish. My motivation is selfish, right? I want to have access to those funds too. So I'm looking for a way to short circuit that without exposing us to unnecessary risk in terms of having to pay back money that is wrongly spent, or even, I think we discussed jail time last meeting too, right? So, but that's kind of where I would suggest we start the conversation, maybe with a process, something along those lines. But I'm certainly open to suggestions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Sanders.
Yes, sir, thank you. I think we kind of wasted a little bit of time. Let's just start, and I agree with Commissioner Edwards. I actually brought that back a while back because DeKalb County did what Commissioner Edwards is speaking. So that does work. So thank you for that suggestion. But I think my motion was, to schedule this meeting, was that the commissioners come together, decide how we're going to spend the funds. And I think we added on, Commissioner Coward added on to that, was have a committee of commissioners of 3 commissioners. I think was it 3, Commissioner Coward? I can't remember what it was. 2 or 3 to actually be on the committee to do the research. So I think that we should go ahead and just start this. If we want to start with public safety, how much we want to allocate and what public safety actually what we need here in the county. Then we go on to rental assistance. Let's break it down so we're not wasting our time and the taxpayers' time who wants to figure out what we're doing. So like we're kind of organized. So if we could just break this down, maybe start with rental assistance first. If that's what we want to do, what is the actual terminology for that under the CARES Act? the ARPA funds, what would that be up under?
I have a thing, if we could put up on the board, I'll walk through it and tell you what I recommend you do.
Thank you.
All right, so if you look on your screen, this is the spreadsheet that Commissioner Sanders, the spreadsheet that Commissioner Sanders prepared, and I inserted some information to match the Treasury Department's guidelines. There are 5 categories of expenditures, and I understand that Mr. Kerr has addressed those with you back in August, but I'm going to walk through them again, and then I'm going to tell you what I recommend you think about doing. First category is to support public health expenditures, and that would be things like, testing, treating, medical expenses, public health and safety staff, things like that. Straight up public health. The next category is kind of the bigger category. It's to address negative economic impacts caused by the public health emergency. And that includes harms to your workers, households, small businesses, impacted industries, and the public sector. That's the bigger sort of catch-all category. Next is to replace lost public sector revenue. This is where you could funnel money into government operations. Now, the Treasury Department hasn't really said this, but the language is to replace lost public sector revenue. It is my opinion that you have to be able to demonstrate that you have lost public sector revenue before you can funnel money into that. So, looked like Mr. Kerr was about to say something.
Actually, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, may I?
Go ahead. Yes.
Thank you. There is a bill that is just passed the Senate.
Yes.
And is going to the House which would allow us to claim $10 million of our $21 million as lost revenue, and $10 million to be allowed for road and other infrastructure improvements. Now, that loosened up that money if the board decided that that's what they wanted to do. Regardless of that, the way that the federal calculation currently, we're eligible for $6 million in lost revenue based replacement based on the federal calculation. We have not promoted that simply because of the fact that we did not experience true lost revenue. As a matter of fact, we did better than the prior year, so in good conscience, I could not say we had lost revenue. However, federal calculation being what it is and whatever would allow us to take up to $6 million as lost revenue. So
you know you've got a cap on that.
sorry.
You know at least there's a cap on that. You can't
Yes,
go
there
above
is a
6.
cap on that, and if this other bill passes, we could take up to 10 million. 10 million. There is a formula, there is a calculation that's been done for every county in the United States. We happen to get 10 million because, and it's again, federal math. I don't know how they get there, but it's federal math.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, well, let me just tell them all what they are. So the next category, if we scroll down to the next page, is to provide premium pay for essential workers. Now that requires you to identify who your essential workers are and offer them premium pay. And I will tell you, a lot of jurisdictions have identified all of their employees as essential workers. A lot of jurisdictions have divided them up, public safety and others. But you've seen a big disparity, not disparity, but a big range. And that premium pay is anything from one-time bonuses to, hourly rate increases, things like that. And the last category is to invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. And that category was very narrowly structured for those specific categories of public improvements, but it sounds like they're considering expanding that. So what I would recommend you do as an initial step is sort of take a baby step of walking through each one of these 5 categories and deciding what percentage of your total do you want to dedicate to each of these bigger picture categories, and then get within each category and decide where that money would go. So for instance, there's 5 categories. If you just wanted to, and I'm not suggesting this is what you should do, but if you wanted to just put 20% in each category, so you'd put 20% for public health, 20% for negative economic impacts, 20% for lost public sector revenue, et cetera. And then go back, sort of step 2 of your conversation would be, maybe start at public health. How are we going to spend that 20% that we've designated there? Now, what you may decide to do is maybe you say, well, we've got a really robust public health system here, and we're going to put 0 money into public health. And instead, we're going to put 40% into negative economic impacts. You could do that. You could put all 100% into any one of these categories. But I think the first step that the board may want to consider doing, if you don't want to do Mr. Edwards' plan, which I think makes sense, peel off some portion and make it discretionary funding, but then you still have the body of what's left to deal with. Divide it up into those categories, and then get into each category and decide how to spend it. And then you're still going to be left with how do you administer the details. If you decide, let's say, for example, you decide 80% of the funds are going to go to the address negative economic impacts category. And within that, you decide 50% is going to go to small business assistance. If that's what you decide, well, the next decision somebody's going to have to make, which is this board, is what are the qualifications? How does a small business apply? How does a small business qualify? Who qualifies them? Who reviews their applications? What are the caps? So you've got a lot of work to do to handle the big picture. If you want to do something immediate, if you're looking for spending money in the really, really, really immediate short term, Mr. Edwards' idea might be the only one that works in the immediate short term, because otherwise you've got so many decisions to make about how to tackle this problem. But my recommendation is make an allocation among those big 5 categories and then allocate within them.
Mr. Kerr, then I got to go to Commissioner Cowan and Commissioner Henderson. But go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, one of the things that I wrote into the RFP was for the consultant would be charged with conducting sufficient public engagement meetings, surveys, and outreach to determine the needs of the residents. So I guess a question that I've got at this point, because if we start developing a budget, after all of that, part of it, I mean, there's a 2-page list of things here that they would need to do. But I would think after all of that, that's when you would want to develop your budget. So I guess a question would be, at this point then, is the board satisfied that there's been enough public engagement to develop what the needs of the community are, to determine that? I don't know if there's been enough, or have there been community meetings for the public to speak, you know, in all of the districts or not. I mean, I just throw that question out there because it's extremely important, and I know how, you know, the board members have expressed multiple times about getting the public involved, and so I would think would not want to bypass a step or shortcut a step in order to make sure that we're putting the dollars in the right place, and that was, you know, as part of the work that would be done. But I just put that out there for consideration, because I know that's going to be something that's going to need to be considered.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Cowan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. Commissioner Mason, you read the Treasury regulations. I pulled those up and looked at them too. And I need to get our attorney's opinion on that. They're a little bit vague on the guidelines. They're vague enough to make me worry. I was a little concerned about that. So, I mean, it reads like an advertising document. It's like it's, you know, this is such a great thing, but it doesn't really tell you how to go about doing that. So I was a little concerned about that. The guidelines and procedures have not really been laid out yet. But nevertheless, it doesn't keep us from moving forward as long as we understand what the intent is. The other question I had on process, I still feel like before we get too far into dispersing money, we ought to have I don't care if it's just a skeletal procedure in place with an application, some rules for the accounting, some rules for the reconciliation of the monies, and there ought to be an appeal process in there for people that are denied for whatever reason. Let's suppose they applied for rent assistance, and for whatever reason, whoever did the review turned them down. There ought to be a process in place for that. As far as application goes, I mean, there's some details, and I was speaking to Commissioner Henderson just a second ago, but there's some key details out there. Suppose you got a household with 6 people in it. How many times does that household get rent assistance? Is it by the person or is it by the household? Because everybody's going to be subject to eviction at some point. So I don't know what that is, and to make sure that we are doing this properly and reasonably and everything, I would like to get, even if it's just a skeletal outline procedure in place, I'd like to see that in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Henderson?
Thank you. Well, first of all, you know, and I want just kind of someone ask you a question, Commissioner Cowan, is that I think you would only, if you're going to give some money only to one household, in other words, I use my address, for example. I think most everybody know my address anyway. 7134 Puckett Street. You could not get but one application from that house. That used to be a different number. Whomever would do an application would look for the same numbers on the house. So I think that may solve that problem. But just let me say this. You know, if it's been, what, about 6, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months? How long has it been? It's been, okay, several months. We've been talking this and nothing. not one red cent are we out helping people. What struck me at the beginning of when we started talking about it was Commissioner Edwards. And what he said was, it made a lot of sense to me, and the sense was, but I didn't agree on the amount that each district commissioner, going through the guidelines that Commissioner Sanders and other counties had done, along with the help of the attorney or someone from finance department, one person or two people being designated to bring those applications back from that particular district in order to draw that money from the districts for the much needed help, and we're talking about now. I thought it was a great idea. I just didn't agree on the amount of money. I thought some at least $1 million apiece, and that would leave there $5 million if we got $10 million. And what I've heard is $10 million in the bank. That would leave $5 million to go down the line and see all this stuff they're talking about. I think we're making it too complicated. I think I've heard the last few times we were here, well, they need to get a job. There's nothing that has been said that in order to apply for that money that you had to get a job. So only thing what I'm saying is I think we're making it too complicated. Other counties have distributed most of all their monies, and I think we need to chime on the board. And not only us, you need to get on with the city of Covington. I think they got about $4 or $5 million. And I don't want to take that money, and I said it before, I'll say it again, and spend on roads and bridges and all this other stuff instead of helping people, the stakeholders of Newton County, people who live here who need help, and seem like we're not even we're talking about it a little bit now. It's hard to even talk about it. They stop turning a deaf ear. I guess I mentioned it to these Democrat Republicans. Stop holding deaf ears and let's go out and help somebody. So that's what I'm saying. Let's help them. We have the opportunity to help a lot of people in our community, and we still prolonging it. Let's stop doing that. It's time to stop. Stop playing politics, and let's help these people who need help. There's a lot of them. I've had several people come to my house and say, JC, I need help. And if I could, I would send them up here in the finance department and say, go file an application, and you get help, and you deduct that from District 4. So, and I believe for immediate assistance, if each commissioner had $1 million to be distributed the way we're talking about, hey, I think that's a plus. Thank you.
Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to go back to and to address Commissioner Cowan, when I did go to the U.S. Treasury website, I wasn't stating that it tells you exactly how to, what process that you put in place to actually distribute the funds. What I was relating to, there is a federal registry or federal register under volume 86, number 93. It's the rules and regulations. This was put out on Monday, May 17th, 2021. And it just talks about the eligible uses of the actual funds. So that's what I was stating, that if you go to the U.S. Treasury, it kind of outlines what you can utilize those funds for in that federal register under that volume and that number on that date under the rules and regulations of the ARPA funds. So now that we kind of have an outline of how we can use them, I do like the idea of the categories that we just mentioned. And if we wanted to put, if we have those 5 categories, and we want to put $2 million in each one of those categories, and then we can break it down even further by district to say, this district will get X amount of dollars, all 5 districts get X amount of dollars. I think that's great. Once we decide that, then I think the most important piece that we're going to have to figure out is, once we've decided which area those funds are going to be allocated, which district is going to get which specific amount of funds, now we got to figure out, how do we distribute those funds? How do we get them out? Do we create an online application? where everybody submit their applications online. We set up criteria. We look at that criteria. If it's COVID related, then we distribute those particular funds to a landlord. We distribute those funds to the utility company. Of course, we don't want to be in a position where we're actually putting checks in people's hands, but we do want to make sure that we are sending these monies to those companies to prevent those individuals or to provide that relief to our citizens. So I think the most important piece to this whole program is how do we distribute the funds? Do they have to come in? Do the citizens come into the county building? They fill out a paper application? You know, what is that process? What is that criteria that says, yes, you're eligible, or no, you are not eligible for these particular funds? Is what you're requesting, is it related to COVID-19? So I think I would like to see that be our focus once we decide the percentages of where these funds are going to go. What is the process to get that money to the landlords, to the utility companies, so that we can immediately begin to provide relief to our citizens? And I think that's what's most important on tonight, and that's what I'd like to see. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Sanders.
My fellow commissioners, why are we working so hard? I think I said in the beginning, this has already been done. Counties already have the process. We talked to our neighboring colleagues and talked to them to find out how they did the process. That's how I got this information. I contacted them. They told me what we need to do. So I would like for us, because it's 7:42, can we start with support public health and expense and possibly put some categories in there, because we haven't done anything yet. I would like to, if my suggestion is to start with rental assistance.
So listen, first, I've heard all the commissioners say pretty much agree on one thing so far, and that is that they want to set aside a certain percentage of money for each district. Is that not true?
No, I wouldn't finish talking. I didn't know we were, go ahead.
So let's clear it up first. If that's what we're doing, is that the direction we're going in, we need to,
I thought we were breaking down the categories like our attorney stated, because he actually so graciously put in the actual categories. I created the spreadsheet, but he put the categories based on what the law states or what can be done, because he's done this before.
okay.
So this will help us to guide, so we can have something, at least a shell.
Okay, so that, and that's fine, so we just want to make sure, so, we're not allocating, money to each district now, so we're gonna go by, y'all want to do this, the program, the worksheet, fill out the worksheet, is that correct? Commissioners? You, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to do that, exactly what Commissioner Sanders is saying. But I also don't want, when you start distributing money, unless you say getting a certain amount to each district, that you end up, more money end up probably somewhere else than in that respective district. If we took it and divided up equally, then you could spend no more than a certain amount of money each district. Said District 4 said no more than $1 million, $2 million, whatever that number is, that we all get the same amount in our district. Go down by category, change it however you want to distribute it, but let's make sure that, you know, at the end of the day, that the money is being put out somewhat equally to as best you can to each one of the districts, so that so the people in the district can get benefit. Because if we don't be careful doing that, and then what happens is all the money be on one side of town instead of being distributed equally amongst the whole county.
So, I'm sorry, Commissioner Calvin, go ahead.
Thank you. I think Commissioner Sanders is right. We need to identify the categories first, and then you can identify the amounts. But if you want to do it by districts, that's fine. I don't have any preference one way or the other. I do know that District 5 does not have a lot of rental problems. So there may have to be, and again, it's when I go back to procedures, I don't know, and I'm asking the attorney, is there a way to transfer money if there's necessary from one group to another? I mean, there's no need for District 5 to hold $2 million in rental assistance and not need but $300,000. That would be ridiculous. That's not helping the community. I like to get the rules in place first, but I do agree with her, the categories are right. If you want to identify the group, the districts later, that's fine. But I think we need to think through how those things are going to work out, and have some provisions in the procedures that allow, whether it's a transfer or whether it's whatever it is, I don't know. Because I just don't see District 5 needing that much rent money. They may need something else, but I just don't see them needing that.
Mr. Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm afraid that if you try to do it by district, you're going to wind up with 5 separate programs. And it's going to be a nightmare for trying to manage the program. I understand the sensitivity, but I think you establish, if this is what you want to do, is establish how much for each area, establish the programs in that area, whatever that is, health and wellness or whatever. But if you try to break it down by district, you're going to have, it's going to be a nightmare, and it would be too difficult to manage because of the very thing that Commissioner Henderson mentioned and Commissioner Cowan mentioned. Some areas have more rental properties than others. Some have more 501c if you're going to help small business or 501s. So there's no, you'd have to custom design it for each area. And it really should be county-wide and not by district, because this is a program and this is intended for the county. The money was not distributed to the districts. The money was distributed to the county. So it should be a county program and open to the entire, to anybody that's in the county. The other thing too is, to be aware of is the cities do have their money. My understanding is most of them are putting all of their money in infrastructure, water and sewer stuff. But so I'm assuming we will probably have people from this, because they are part of the county, coming to the county to request funds or funding for things as well. And I just kind of mentioned that to throw that out there, but my 2 cents worth anyway, because I know that if we have to managing a program, it's going to, extremely difficult if we have to do 5 separate programs.
Okay. All right, Patrick. Yes, Patrick, go ahead.
And to sort of piggyback on what Mr. Kerr said, I don't know how you could administer these funds if you're going to maintain a strict district allocation. I would also say to Mr. Kerr's earlier comment, even as you're dividing, even if you divide the funds among these different classifications today, I can tell you an experience that a lot of jurisdictions have had, which speaks to Mr. Kerr's suggestion about some community outreach, was a lot of jurisdictions set aside an enormous amount of money for small business assistance. Maybe $5 million for small business assistance, and they couldn't spend it because it turned out there weren't a lot of businesses that were prepared to qualify, that were applying and qualifying for that small business assistance. It seems kind of counterintuitive because you think businesses are shutting down all over the place, but I recall, I know for a fact that this was with the CARES Act funding, not necessarily ARPA funding. I know for a fact several big jurisdictions set aside big swaths of money for small business assistance, and they sat on it, and they sat on it, and they sat on it. And then, you know, if you know, with CARES Act funding, that was money you had to spend it. And at some point, they're shifting that money into something else. And that might be a problem that you face if you don't have some broad-based outreach to your community to find out where the needs are. It could, and I noticed part of the packet we got was a Gwinnett County Community Needs Assessment, which I don't know if this is the whole thing. I kind of glanced through it, and it seemed to be divided up into a number of sections, and I don't know if it was targeted to individuals. It appears that it probably was targeted to individuals or categories of community leaders. And the suggestion seemed to be, tell us where you think these funds should go. And that might be really helpful so you don't allocate a bunch of money and then have trouble giving it out. You know, it's rare that you want to spend your money, but this might be funds that you do want to spend. You certainly don't want them sitting there for something that's not used.
Okay. Go ahead.
The other thing too that I wanted to mention, we really haven't talked about, but that was the needs of the county. I've had a request from the clerk of courts for digitization of their records. Clerk of courts in Whitfield County is using ARPA funds for that, and that appears to be an eligible expense. We had contact today from the DA's office requesting money to set up a gun violence prevention program. The sheriff's office obviously has, you commissioners, I believe, received a letter for additional money for the public, for the law enforcement personnel. We obviously want to make sure we take care of our other personnel. And the magistrate probate court needs to expand their office area, and all of these can be related to issues surrounding COVID for future prevention, because the courtrooms are so small over there, for instance, that they're right on top of each other and you can't have more than 4 or 5, 6 people in there at a time. So we really haven't even talked about what some of the needs of the county are, so those would need to be considered as well as part of the fact-finding and input as to what are all of the needs of the county that some of the constitutional officers have, as well as some of the departments for which some of this money would be eligible. So we want to make that a consideration too, and a lot of those can fall into these categories, but we don't. I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of that as well.
Commissioner Henderson, then Commissioner Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is what you call government. I mean, they want to spend the money on everything, but putting it out, giving it out to the people who needs it. This is our government. And I said this on my webpage, and like I've been investigating 4.5 years, and probably 4.5 more. Stop putting people in office. Stop putting people in office. They forget about you. It should be a discussion on getting this money out to us. Not talking about the probate. CARES Act money. What they talking about? The CARES Act money. Do you know what that was? You got nothing. They were supposed to give a little bit to the citizens in the way that we're trying to give it out now to the people who need it. We got nothing. It went to build a building or fix something, but it didn't come out to the people. At some point, I care if my neighbor get evicted and out in the street, and I know they lost a job or they just had COVID and been in the house for weeks and they get evicted. That concerns me. But people they don't even care. And then to take this money and do what the county man talking about, that's wrong. And I'll say it. I don't even get mad at me. I'll say it. We should be figuring out, or we should have been figured out, how to get this money to you. It shouldn't took this long. And now, guess what? It'll be next year before we come back with a decision on how to get this out. Then probably 2023.
Guys, I'm gonna ask you,
So, but what I'm, if I may,
hold on.
can I finish? Can I finish
Yeah, you
my
can,
thought?
1 second. Guys, we're
Mr.
gonna remind you
Chairman,
that we
come
are
on
in a
now.
public meeting tonight, so please hold your comments, please. Go ahead, Commissioner.
You know, we got a very important election coming up next year. Stop voting for these people who sit up here and procrastinate instead of, we shouldn't be in this long. The vote should be that you give the district commissioner the money, $1 million apiece. You have $5 million to do what they want to do with it. If you can fix a room up there in the program, good. But let's take $1 million per district and give it out to the people. And the reason why I said per district, because if you don't, guess what? One end of the county get more money than the other end. If you give $1 million per district, we would be assured that at least $1 million is spent in 4th district. Just do it the way Commissioner Sanders saying. I think that's a great idea. But unless you do it that way, you won't get nothing. You still be standing out there outdoors. You still rent be behind. Your 501c3 still won't be getting paid back from holding up folks. The shelter should be getting money, but it won't be getting nothing because it don't concern. Because people believe that people who get in bad shape need to get a job. You know, they believe, and that wasn't even mentioned in the emergency funding. All we just want to do, all I want to do, I just want to be simple, is just to help people. You can't help people unless you release the money. Now, we know that all these folks have been getting paid. I get a little bit. He's going to get way more than me, and especially when they're not talking about next year or year after next. They're not worrying about their next mortgage payment. They're not worried about their utility bills. They're not worried. But I am worried about the people who are not here, who are not even speaking up for themselves. I'm worried about them. And I don't see why it's this difficult for us to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and can I make a motion now or that off table? I'm asking the county attorney.
Well, your agenda didn't call for any action. Your agenda was specifically limited to discussion.
Here we go
So you
again.
could amend the agenda to add an action item, but until then, the agenda didn't
Well,
call for
okay,
any action.
thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda so we can make a motion.
Guys, I'm gonna ask one more time. This is a public meeting. Please hold your comments. Commissioner, do you wanna identify what you want to amend the agenda to say, sir?
Yes, the motion that I will make is that to give each commissioner $1 million, $1 million to be spent in the order that Commissioner Sanders was referring to. And she'll call it item by item. We can vote on how we want to vote it so that the money, at least some of the monies, can be distributed to the citizens of Newton County who desperately need it.
Did you hear that? You did? You did? I need a second. Can I get that second? Commissioner Henderson has made a motion that we amend the agenda to add 4A. 4A, discussion and consideration of giving each commissioner, allocating each commissioner $1 million ARPA funds to be utilized in their particular district. And it's been seconded by Commissioner Sanders. Any discussion? Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we currently have over $10.5 million. So if $1 million was allocated to each district, would there be any way to, if District 1 did not need $1 million, we can shift that to another district. Additionally, the remaining 5.5 or 5.8 would be used in a more, I'm asking, would the remaining 5.8 be used in a more structured, within a more structured process, more along the lines of the 5 categories aligned for the remaining 5.8 million? So it's known if we took $500,000 or $1 million per district, it would have to be used in one of these 5 categories. I'm Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Did you get your question answered? You got your question answered? You need the attorney to expand on your question.
I guess that's a question for Commissioner Henderson. Is what we need to make a decision on the remaining 5.8. Do we leave that to a later date? Do we leave that to a different process? Do we leave that to the process that we have an RFP out now for now?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my question to you would be then, if $1 million is going to each of the commissioners, who's supposed to manage that? Because there would have to be, going to have to be a program set up. I mean, you have to go through all of the things that we've discussed, which would be for whatever. You know, or would the expenditure of that money be rest with the commissioner? By that I'm saying, would they sign off on those distributions? You know, without all of the safeguards in place, I could not in good conscience sign off on those, nor could I expect any of my employees to sign off on any of those disbursements unless we had everything in place that would need to be in place. So, I mean, it's a question. You know, and if that's the case, if we need to manage it, then I would gladly do that, but with whatever consultant that we go through this RFP process with.
Well, can I ask? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, you know, the very first thing is, Lord, you are our county manager. It's your job. I'm trying to choose my word, you know, kind of carefully. It's supposed to be your job, whatever we ask you to do within reason. If I may finish, please. Whatever we ask you to do within reason, for you to do it, either consult with counsel, Gerard and Davis, who we pay a whole lot of money to. I think last budget about $800,000, to help you or assist you for the objective that we ask you to do. If the majority of the board, simple majority, was asked you, say, Lord, we want you to go out and distribute this money the way we ask you to, I would think that you do it because we're paying you to do it. You get a nice salary and everything else that goes along with it to do it for us. And so, you know, and I don't think, if you don't want to do it yourself, get somebody else. But we're asking that it be done, if it's approved by the board, we ask that it be done, like, you know, as soon as possible. Not several months from now, but as soon as possible, Lord. We're not asking anything that we think that you can't do, or you can't get somebody to help you do it. That's all.
I agree with you. It is my job, and I have no problem doing my job. But and you can tell me to do that, but where that ends is it is my responsibility to do it. But how I get that done is entirely left up to me. And so the way that I believe that is best to accomplish that is to use an outside consultant to bring that consultant in to manage the project.
I have a question to the county attorney, if I may, just one, I'm through, could we bring somebody in as soon as possible to do it? No, I said last time, I said, why not ask the attorney that worked for the sheriff department, who's working for the county, who's working for the Texas office, to come in and manage this for us, because we don't have nobody that can do it. Tip, it used to be, when you ask somebody to do something, the county manager, he'll be somebody, the lawyer or the county manager, or somebody that will do it. We don't have that now. We get a whole lot of excuses instead of doing what we asked. And I don't think it's too much that we're asking. So I would like to, even though I know where it's going, to bring in William Thomas Craig to handle this for us. He's got experience, and he can do it.
So there's several questions on the floor. Let's get the attorney to address them first, sir.
Let me first say that it is not in the county's interests to have the attorney manage a program like this, whether it's this attorney or any other attorney. The attorney's job is to provide you legal advice and to represent you in court if necessary. Attorneys are not equipped to manage financial programs like this. That is an invitation for disaster. That's an invitation for mismanagement of funds. It's an invitation.
I didn't ask nobody to manage it.
No, you asked, could I handle
I'm asking you to find somebody who can.
Well, so let me address that. I could certainly hire somebody, but I would do exactly what Mr. Kerr is doing, is I would request from the industries that do this type of work proposals to do it, to make sure that I'm hiring the most qualified person at the best price. I'm not just going to pick up the phone and call somebody I know to do the work, because I think that would suggest some level of self-dealing or favoritism.
Y'all been doing that.
I'm sorry?
Gerard and Dave's been doing that. You went out and found somebody for 4 years and a half to investigate me. You did it.
Those were,
And they was your friends.
and those were legal services.
So in all what I'm asking, I asked a simple question. If I may say that, Mr. Chairman, the simple question is to get somebody to do what we asked. If that is what we asked, in fact. And what we asking is somebody to be able to get somebody to come in and disperse these funds. And it's just like it's hard. And it shouldn't be hard. It should be easy. Because it's not like we actually do it for free. You're getting paid.
Commissioner Sanders.
Okay, I would like to get down to business. And I'm looking at Douglas County compared to Gwinnett County. Now, they both have on the sheet I gave everybody a copy, they have rental and homeowners assistance, and they allocated $500,000. So can we at least break up there's a motion on the floor? I know it's discussion, right? Discussion. Yeah, so I just would like for us to get down. I know the motion on the floor is to amend, you amended already, right?
No, it's,
I thought we already did.
no.
No, as I understood the motion, it was to,
The motion is to amend the
Could you read
agenda.
our clerk? to us?
The motion is to amend the agenda
Yeah,
to add discussion and consideration whether to give each commissioner $1 million in the district.
okay,
To
so I was
be-
in the right part. Okay, so
Yeah.
I was in the right area, okay. So with I was kind of answering Commissioner Cowan's question. That would be $5 million per district. We're not allocating the funds tomorrow. We're just trying to get a plan. If we can just get a plan on paper, just a plan, just one, I can write one program. Can we just get there? Because it's 8:09, and we have not one program written down. So I agree with the allocation per district, but I would like if we can actually categorize it with percentages. Of course, like Commissioner Edwards said, his district might not need rental assistance, but it might can go to another area that's categorized. So if we could just get through this process tonight, let's just focus and get through this process tonight. We have the motion on the floor. I think I seconded, right? Sir?
You did? huh?
Okay.
So do you guys want to withdraw that motion and get back to the plan?
No, I agree with the allocation of the separation of the funds.
Okay.
But just
All right.
once we agree with the separation of funds per district, let's now go through the categories.
I got you.
Yeah.
Any more discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So can we start with support, public health and expense? And if I may, commissioners, can we start with rental and homeowners assistance? Did you say, our attorney, should we put a percentage there first or a dollar amount?
Well, I think it's easier if you put a percentage.
Okay,
And then, because the percentages have to add up to 200%. You don't
Okay.
have to do a lot of complicated math.
okay. So I would like to, for that area, because that can also include COVID relief, as we say in Rockdale County, they're doing certain things with COVID relief. My suggestion is to add at least 30% in that area, because that's including rental, COVID. No.
Can I suggest something?
Let me, are you finished, Commissioner Sanders? You finished? Commissioner Cowell?
Thank you. Before we get into all these percentages and everything, I suggest we go back to what we talked about the other day. A small group of this board, whether it's 2 or 3 commissioners, just like we did the form of government back 5, 6 years ago, and work it through and then bring something back to the whole board for their consideration. Rather than having the public out there endure what they're having to endure, because it's tough on me. And I don't know what the percentages are. I don't know how that would be, but and I have been reluctant to volunteer for anything like that, but if I can volunteer, I'll be glad to. I'll be glad to write anything I can use if I need to, just to get through this and get done with it. So I'm just suggesting that we put it to a smaller group and then work the details out, bring it back to the board once all that's worked out.
Commissioner Henderson?
Mr. Chairman, it's always something that's going to be thrown in the mix to slow down the process. I think if the board, the majority of the board, it's simple majority, three commissioners, that's all it takes, 3 commissioners, agree to $1 million per district, then you have $6 million, I think $11 million, so not, there may be, there $5 million, I'm sorry, $5 million that you figure out how you're going to disburse the way the county manager has spoke about and the county attorney has spoke about, said, well, we want to do the probate court office, the judge office with the monies, and the reason why we're doing it because of COVID. Well and fine. And then you may want to take another percentage and do something else with it. Only thing what I'm saying is that we need to take monies in the Stripping District, and we can't seem to find nobody up here, nobody. And I'm sorry, I'm sorry you have to see me all like this, y'all. You can't seem to find nobody up here that can say one simple thing, let's go out and get somebody that can do it, or somebody that can show the people leadership, show the people who work for the county how to do it, or bring in somebody to show them how to do it and get this done. They make it seem to be complicated. And when stuff thought to be complicated, the way they're making this complicated because they don't want to give it to you. They're fighting hand, tooth, and nail not to give it, to help you. And they know you need help and don't want to give it to you for whatever reason. But that's between them and God. But what I'm saying is that let's go ahead, and if it's not official, each district, let Lord come back with a plan on how to spend the other $5 million that we have in the bank, and we're looking for another, $11 million? Another 10.8. 10.8, thank you. temporary, and figure out how you may want to distribute that around the county and do whatever you want to do. But the citizen will have to get something as far as relief. And I know a lot of you heard, and I go to houses. These folks don't go to your houses. I come to the houses. And I appreciate the ones who let me in. And I see what you're going through. I've been to the shelter, and when I see that the shelter is full, I know what you're going through. And for somebody to say, wait another week, another 2 weeks, another month, another 2 or 3 months, and you got those and they got money and they could help you. I care. I care. I want to make a difference in helping y'all lives. And the sad part about it, these folks are what you call preachers and deacons, or whatever you call them in their respective churches. And yet they seem like they have a Pharaoh heart. Let's break this. Let's go ahead and make a motion. Ask these folks that we're paying $115,000 a year and $100,000 a year, and who knows what we're paying the county attorney. Sometimes it'd be off the charts. To help us do this little simple test of distributing this money, and then we're looking at maybe $5 million amongst the people in our district, in the county, who need help.
Commissioner Sanders and then Commissioner Edwards.
I'm just going back to the business, and I know, remember, Commissioner Edwards, when we talked in the elevator, your original amount was $1 million, so that's why I kind of came with that amount. So we can get back to, if that's okay with everybody? Can we get, can we start? Okay, I'll let Commissioner Edwards want to say one. Okay.
Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner Sanders. Commissioner Mason looked at me a few minutes ago and said that was your idea. Why'd you vote no? So I was under the impression there were some other elements that I would have drawn the line on that I would have said no to, but those elements did not exist in that particular motion. For that, I apologize. So with that, Commissioner Sanders, there was a 3-2 vote. We've moved on, so I believe Commissioner Sanders is trying to work us down to where we need to be in terms of percentage allocation. And like Commissioner Sanders said earlier, we're not going to distribute money tomorrow. So there's still some details that have to be worked out. So I would kindly yield and with your permission, Mr. Chairman, ask Commissioner Sanders to continue, if she wants to, with the percentage breakdown that she was describing.
I'm gonna do it now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Let me say this.
With the assistance of our county, you say it's okay? Or you want him to go first? Okay, go ahead.
I'll make a suggestion for an alternate plan on the belief that it doesn't feel like you're making a lot of progress tonight. What if you were to consider appointing a committee, make it 2 commissioners, the county manager, the county attorney, and direct them to return at the first meeting in December with a plan to spend the ARPA funds that can be voted up or voted down or amended. It just seems like, it feels like, and I don't mean this against any commissioner, it feels like the board is not ready tonight to discuss the details of spending the ARPA funds. If you are, let's proceed. But if you're not prepared to discuss how they're going to be spent, I think on the notion that they're not going to be spent tomorrow, it might make sense to have, instead of starting from scratch, have a proposal in front of you to vote up, vote down. It's a good starting point, rather than starting from zero, which is where you've been sitting on zero for a long time. And I get that, and that's very frustrating. But I think it might be an easier pill to swallow if you've got something concrete in front of you to vote on. That's an alternative you may want to consider.
I'm gonna use chairman's privilege, point of privilege now. Commissioner Sanders, are you planning on leaving for the next couple of days or the next week? Commissioner Edwards, will you be here for the next couple of weeks? I'm gonna ask for a motion. I'm sorry. I'm gonna ask for a motion for Commissioner Sanders and Commissioner Edwards, along with the county manager and the attorney, to come back to us with a plan for the first meeting in December. I'm gonna ask for somebody to submit that as a motion. I'm using chairman's privilege. I'm not amending the agenda. I'm using chairman's privilege, point of privilege tonight. The very first meeting in December, I'm asking for Commissioner Sanders and Commissioner Edwards to work with the county manager and the county attorney to come back with a plan. The very first meeting in December, I think that is the 7th, to come back with a plan to present before this board. And within that plan, they can reach out to the commissioners, their fellow commissioners, and they can reach out to their fellow commissioners and work together and put this plan together and come back and present it for the board. I want somebody, Commissioner Edwards. You did make that a motion? Was there a second? Any discussion, Commissioner Henderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is another further attempt by your Democrat Republicans to make sure that you don't get what you want. Make sure that you won't make a decision.
Hold on one second, Commissioner.
Yep.
Come on back.
Yeah, I know it. I know you don't. But this is
Commissioner
another attempt for them to keep prolonging you getting this money. They rather be spent on something else rather than on the people of this community, of this county. And it's bad that that a lot of us, we're more people in here outside or in the audience who are in need, and yet you still have deaf ears. You still have hard hearts. And how many more people are going to be put out between the end around the Christmas month? How many more people are going to be put out though with their children? How many more? They don't worry them. They don't worry them. And the bad part about it is that, I've asked for Gerard and Davis not to be for them to use somebody else. They still put the same folks here to do the same stuff. And you bypass the very person, who brought it up, and you rather put another person on the committee or a supposed committee. And that's not right. Now, I'll go with you right, but if you're wrong, I'll say it, and I don't care who you are and where you sit and what you say.
Thank you, sir. Well, I'm gonna make discussions. I'm gonna make some comments tonight. So, Commissioner Sanders came in with her paperwork in her hand. She came in. She sent an email out to the board. She stated in her email that she did her homework, and she wanted to send it to the board so the board can actually do the research. So, sir, if we do not get anything done tonight, I'm addressing the board. If we do not get anything, if we don't put a plan in place tonight, it will be next year sometime before we could even do anything. So to put a team together to come back with a plan to put in place to present to the board, it's the right thing to do. How can you come up against the very thing that you've been asking for? I seek a motion that we, go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, there is not a commissioner here that has been here that wants funds allocated for this any more than me. I can promise you. Mine is internet. I got kids picking up their assignments from school last year when at the school in the rain under the shelter in District 1, District 5, and District 2. I know, and I saw some areas in District 3 too that had to go to the school to pick up their work, come home, do it, and then take it back to the school and leave it under the shelter because they don't have internet. So that is my passion tonight. I brought some paperwork too. Mine's not as neat as Commissioner Sanders, but I brought some of my own stuff here tonight. And there's nobody, let me say it one more time, there's nobody that wants this money in their district any more than I do. But if you wrote me a check for $1 million tonight, I'd probably go to jail. I don't know what I would do with that $1 million. I don't know how you would give that money to me. I don't know how I would disperse that money. So a plan has got to be put in place, and I'm a sense of urgency. We've got to have a sense of urgency. I think this board now has that sense of urgency. But if you put them if I had rental assistance, if I was going to do rental assistance in my district, and you wrote me a check for allocated $1 million for me tonight, I don't know how to disperse it. So we got to come up with that plan as well. So that's kind of where I'm okay with making a plan as long as we have a sense of urgency. We've got to have that sense of urgency. Now my question is, there was a motion on the floor and a second.
It's a second. I'm calling for the vote.
So my question would be, we've designated $1 million. Did we designate $1 million per district?
We did.
And that committee is gonna decide how to spend that $1 million. They're gonna come back with a broader plan.
Y'all need to come back with the complete plan. You can do both. You need to come back with a complete plan.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Passed 3-0. Guys, thank you so much for being willing to work on this team and bring back something to present before the board. Please reach out to your fellow commissioners and get their input on implementing a plan. Please, thank you. We are now at item number 5, citizen comments. We do have our state representative here tonight, Ms. Sharon Henderson. She has asked, could she go first? So, ma'am, if you would, please. Please state your name and your address for the record, please.
Good afternoon.
Good
I
evening.
am State Representative Sharon Henderson, and I stand before you tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and all the commissioners for your comments, and Mr. Kerr for your diligent work as well. I rise before you tonight, and I know I'm limited in time. I'm wanting to express my sentiments for this rescue plan. Now, we've had this rescue plan, and the plan is supposed to be for funding and rescuing those that are in our community that have financial difficulties. Starting with rental assistance, I spoke with Mayor Horton, and he voiced that there were several issues regarding rental assistance. I've had even people call my office regarding rental assistance. Okay, rental assistance, education, homeless, mental health, special needs community. All of these are a laundry list of things that need to be adhered to and addressed. And from what I can remember, when I was here on September 7th, I addressed the commission and asked Commissioner Elena Sanders to come up with a plan, getting with all the commissioners, coming up with a plan for the people, coming up with a plan for the needs of the people. And with all due respect, I'm not a beat around the bush type woman, so I'm gonna get directly to the point. The funds have been here since May of 2021, 6 months ago. Since then, that $10 million, $10.8 million accumulated in that bank account. I've been in banking for 30 years as branch manager. Those funds have accumulated substantial amount of interest over 6 months. So you're not looking at just 10.8 million, you're looking at 10.8 million plus. And why can't we, with all due respect, come up with something to help the people now? People are in need of funds to pay their rent. People are in need of funds to pay their taxes. People are in need of funds to pay even car repairs. People are in need of funds to pay insurance. It does not matter who we like or dislike on this board, it's not about us. It's about the people. And we have to be about the people's business. Put our own feelings aside and let's help the people. We've had it since May, and it's going to be May again. And the funds are still not being distributed. And yes, there are counties that actually have dispersed their funds to the people. So my question to you tonight, what do I tell the people that are calling my office? Why is it taking so long? There are people, especially seniors, yes, we abide by the compliance, yes, we abide by guidelines. However, the average person, especially the elderly people, they don't understand that it's taking a long time because of compliance, guidelines, and all the red tape. All they know is they do not have money to pay their bills, period. So we have to expedite the process as much as we can to get the funds in the hands of the people, okay? The average, some people were hoping to have funds. It's a holiday approaching. By Christmas, to have funds in their pocket, to have money in their pocket. No, we may not give funds to John Doe directly, but if we can make a check payable to ABC Management Company for John Doe's rent, we can do those things. Let's please get this process expedited for the people. Put the people first.
Thank you.
And please understand, with all due respect, am I over my time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Please let us put the people first, and let's get the funds in the hands of the people. Let us expedite the process as much as we can.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to make citizens comment tonight?
Good evening. My name is Carla Hooper. I'm a resident of 45 Carmody Circle in Covington, Georgia. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. County Manager, you came with a lot of research on how not to pay rental assistance. I'm not sure what the issue is about rental assistance, but this is what I would suggest for the committee as you break off. Number one, you always want to deal with your low-hanging fruit. What's the most pressing thing? The federal government has already shown what the 5 major categories are. That's based on research. We know that rental assistance and any type of public health are needs that are current. I would suggest that you allocate monies for at least 2 major categories and spend those monies first. The next thing that all you have to do is then come up with the infrastructure. While you are meeting, County Manager, you've got to start researching infrastructure. You have to look at the data systems that are already in place in DeKalb, Fulton, in order to collect the data and then report on the data. The systems are already there. The next thing, County Manager, that I suggest that you do is begin to hire contractors, because you've made it very clear, and I do not want to be that contractor, so I'm not advocating for me. But what I'm saying is hire persons, a team of contractors, to administer the funds and to manage the proposals that you will send out. So you deal with the low-hanging fruit, pick at least 2 categories that you want to fund, and we know rental assistance and utility assistance is a part of that. Get your infrastructure in place so that you can deal with the applications that are going to come in, because the next thing that you want to do is you want to create proposals for those 2 categories and ask the agencies in the community to apply for those funds. But you have to have the infrastructure in place, and those systems already exist. And I know that this CARES money allows for administrative costs. It's not that complicated. The next thing that I would suggest this committee deal with is the contractor for this recent RFP. That could possibly be a plan not intentional, but contractors can really stall a process when they do research and all this stuff, and they come back with a document, right? So you want to make sure that the contractor has specific deliverables and a time frame of what you expect, not a packet of recommendations that will stall these things out. And if it's going to take you 6 months to get that from a contractor, then you're wasting your time. But I would suggest the committee again, focus on your major things, put proposals together, continue your research with the other counties, because those proposals already exist, and then get the infrastructure in place to handle the proposals when they come in, distribute the money, as well as report on the data. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Anyone else? No. Y'all got it. Y'all got it. Y'all got it. Y'all got it. Trust me, y'all got it. I promise you.
Good afternoon. My name is Thelma Starnala. I live at 3163 Stormont Street.
Can you? Right.
My name is Thelma Starnala. I live at 3163 Stormont Street, Covington. Lord, I need to ask you a question, and I don't know if I heard you right, but you said the money is for the people in the county and not for the people in the city. That's what you said. Am I not right?
Mm-mm.
So you didn't say that because you said that the city had already got some money. You did say that, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the only thing that I'm saying is, if it's not for the people in the city, they don't make a difference with the city and the county taxes, and I pay both city and county taxes. So it shouldn't make a difference whether it's for the city or the county, because we do live in the county. So that's all I'm asking. You know, don't make a difference between the city and the county, because we pay both taxes. You may not pay them, but Lord knows I pay them. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Tracy Lowe, and I live at 125 Spring Valley Trace. This is my, and I hate to say this, but this is my very first time coming to this type of meeting, and I've been in Covington 12, 13 years, and I'm very disgusted. And I'm disgusted at myself because this is my first time coming. But to see this is so, and I hate to use this word, but this is, let me just say this. To say, be insensitive, sir, and say 100 people being evicted versus thousands, that's so insensitive to me. That is so disheartening. One person losing their home, one child losing their home, that is so, this is disheartening. This is ghetto to me. And one thing about it, this will not be my last time here. I pay my taxes here. I feel a certain kind of way. But one thing you better know, what may not affect you now will affect you later. What affects me right now, it's gonna affect you later. You may have things all planned out and your Christmas is together and how you put your money in your budget. But what affects you, what may not affect you right now, my God, will affect you someday. Thank you.
God. Anyone else want to make citizen comments? Anyone else? Anyone else?
Good evening, Commissioner. My name is Terry Jackson. I live here in Newton County, been here 20 years. I vote every election. And I'm not sure how many are here or how many up here have had a very high utility bill. When I say high, I don't mean no $150. I'm talking about $1,500, $1,200, $1,000, $900. I'm not sure about show of hand how many of you didn't have that, but it affects me when I have a $900 utility bill. And property taxes over $2,500 a year. So let's talk about the utility bill. You guys probably set the rate for the utility bills in this county, that these people out here paying monthly, that affects their bottom line. I can't afford that. I can't afford no $400 a month. That costs more than my darn car note. So you're talking about car note, mortgage, grocery bills, cell phone bills. Now you got a $600 utility bill? Where they do that at? You guys need to do more to protect the people out here paying your salary, but you guys are not doing enough to protect the taxpayers out here. Now you want to spend money with big corporations and sewer projects and sewer lines and electric lines, broadband. I want somebody to get this utility off my back so I can afford a $150 utility bill. Now, see, you guys probably can afford it. Y'all got pension plans probably, retirement plans. These people out here go to work every day. And when they get a $700 light bill, what they supposed to do with that? Sleep in the dark? They don't want to do that, man. Come on, use that money, not for your special projects. Use that money to help these people out here who paying the property taxes, who paying these utility bills. Use that money to help the people out. They giving back to the community, but you guys got your own agendas, using that money to help AT&T out. Hey, forget about all that. AT&T got billions of dollars. They don't need Noon County money. They got money,
Hey, guys,
okay? But
hey.
I'm telling you, they don't need your money, okay? What I'm saying, that $10 million is not for your special project to be a sewer line, pipeline. We pay taxes to do all, taxes to do all of that.
Hey, guys,
The only thing I want you to do is take that $10 million and give it back to the people. It's on our back because y'all utility bill is taking it out on us.
Mr. Jackson, address me. I'm listening.
I do apologize, but when it hits home, when we sit out here and listen to you guys downplay the people, we vote you guys in, and you sweep us on the road. $1 million. If you don't need the $1 million, maybe your district don't need $1 million, but her district may need it. Give it to her. You don't have to use it. People in your district probably sitting on $5 million. They don't need the money, but people in her district on low income, fixed income, they may need that money. Just exclude your district if you don't need it.
Thank you, sir.
Pass it over to her then.
Thank you,
I'm
sir.
quite sure they need the money.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I do apologize.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Guys, please do remember that there is a time limit. Please remember that. State your name and the record, please.
I promise you, I won't take over 3 minutes. My name's Jerome Henderson. Most of y'all here know who I am. My beautiful wife is the state rep, Sharon Henderson. I just want to say this. I sit back, I come to the meetings. I sat back the last time, I sat back this time. I notice certain people, they get up, they shake their head. And by the way, let me say this, J.C. Henderson, I noticed you got up, but I want you to know you're doing a good job. And I want to say this, Atlanta Sanders doing a good job. And I know there's a lot up here doing a good job, but this money here, it's for the people. It shouldn't take this long. Like my wife said, like the people said, okay, people are hungry, okay? Put yourself in their shoes. I can say this, time for a change. The same way you got voted in, the same way you coming out. And I'm gonna say this, most of y'all know me, and a whole lot of y'all up there that's running, I'm gonna help to get you out to see. Because you know why? Because that's what the people want. The people want you to do something, okay? You got people making $150,000 a year. You got some making 100, okay? The people vote you in. You must not forget where you come from. You must not forget where you come from. Like Michelle Obama said, you might go low, but we go high. But all I got to say this, time for a change. The people need the money. It's time out to stop dragging your foot, stalling time, know you got the money, making plans to give the money to your buddies, to give it to your friends, give it to the people. That's who need the money. The people need the money. Let's get to work and let's do it. My wife was here the last time. I keep looking, I see the clock. She was here the last time. And the only person that's up here, Lana Sanders. And I agree with my wife. She would be a good person to get together with all y'all up here sitting. Okay? Should have been did something. Put yourself in their shoes, the people's shoes. You got kids, you got family, they're hungry. Okay? I know y'all, some of y'all got these big old cars and big old houses. Okay? But guess what? I got it too. But I'm for the people. I'm for the people. So y'all need to get for the people. Some of y'all can look at me all you want to. I see how you're looking. I see how you look, but guess what? That's all right. That's how you can smile. I'm glad to see y'all smile. Okay? I'm glad to see y'all smile, but let's get to work and do something for the people. I tell you, you know what? Time is flying. Okay? You might get elected, but you will get out.
Thank you, sir.
God bless
Thank
you.
you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Thank you so much. That's it for citizen comments, guys, tonight. Commissioners, thank you so much. Commissioner Edwards, Commissioner Sanders, thank you so much for taking on this task. County Manager Kerr, County Attorney, thank you so much for being a part of this task, guys. If we have anything else, I seek a motion that we adjourn. If there's a motion and second, all in favor, we stand adjourned. Thank you so much.